This is Scott Hammond, and I met Scott maybe 3 years ago. He's actually had work in a show that we had at Grace Harbor College, maybe, what was it, 2 years ago? I think fall
Yeah, that sounds right.
2018,
Yeah.
fall of 2018.
So
And
yeah, that sounds right.
yeah, Scott is a really amazing, his drafting is really amazing. He's got a lot of commercial art experience. Maybe this will come up as we're talking, but he's been able to craft, build a bit of a career for himself in the commercial world. I know students are always interested in, well, art's awesome, but like, how do you make money? I've got a few questions that I'm going to ask
Sure.
you. And again, folks, this hasn't been rehearsed. So the
Yeah,
first one
that's
is,
fine.
can you introduce yourself? So I gave you an introduction. How would you introduce yourself as an artist?
Um, so yeah, I would describe myself as a drawist. I guess that's my main personal focus. Is I do a lot of pen and ink work. I focus on line work, intricate little compositions, or larger pieces. I'm working on a really, it's 22 by 44, which is nothing when you're talking about painting, but when you're talking about drawing,
Yeah.
it's pretty substantial. So that's my big project that I'm working on now. So as a fine artist, that's the kind of stuff I work on, and I like allegorical themes from mythology, especially Norse mythology. So I use a lot of animal and mythological imagery. So that kind of describes my fine art work. But I also work as a commercial artist. I do well, until recently, most of my income comes from working for a merchandising company that makes uh, goods like mugs, keychains, hats, all sorts of stuff for tourist locations. So I've done lots of pieces for all the national parks, for NASA, for Statue of Liberty, for lots of places up in Washington, Space Needle, Seattle in general. So if you go to the airport or any of those tourist locations, I mean, when you can go outside, a lot of that stuff's mine. So it's kind of fun. I'll go. I remember back when I still lived in Washington. I went up to Olympic National Park. I was up there on Hurricane Ridge, and we went into the gift shop. And I was like, "That's mine. That's mine. That's mine." So it's kind of fun to see your work out in the wild, I guess. But it's interesting because my commercial work is drastically different from my personal work, which I like because I'm stuck. I'm not stuck. There's a lot of things I do like about my commercial work, but it's digital. I do a lot of vector-based stuff in Illustrator, or I use Photoshop to do photo manipulations, and it's bright and flashy and lots of colors and stuff I have to get through pretty quick. And so when I do my personal work, I like the slowness of it, and I love the analog nature, the paper on pen, and having that kind of connection and taking my time and doing a lot of details. Because when you're doing commercial work, it's all about how many things can you produce and how quickly. That's how you get your paycheck. But as far as my own work is concerned, I'm looking more toward what do I want to achieve as an artist. I'm working on my craft. I'm working on what's the meaning behind it and all that stuff. So I take a lot of, sometimes I take a lot of time. Like I said, I have that larger piece that's I've been working on since November of 2018, I think. Granted, I took a lot of months off on it, but I will spend a lot of time on my own stuff, get it out as quickly as possible. So I guess it kind of is the broad spectrum of the art that I make.
Mm-hmm.
To give a long answer to your question.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. I was actually going to follow that up with, how do you describe your art? So you already took care of that.
Okay.
When I talk to someone like you, it's really exhilarating because I can't speak for all artists, but I'm full of insecurities, right? And I look
sure.
at you and I think, here's a person who I know is talented, just like in the studio, right? No question there. And then you've also got all of these really fantastic technological skills. It's It's a little rare, I think, to encounter an artist who's talented and capable in the studio, but also can interface like that. So I think it's a quality. It's a quality that I envy, and in you for sure.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
yeah, no problem, man. Okay, so to keep this really interesting, strangest thing that's ever happened to you because of your art.
Oh, strangest thing that's ever happened to me because of my art. I mean, I have, wow, I have lots of industry stories about being a designer, and because I mean, my commercial art, it's maybe 50-50 illustration, graphic design. So, and this might be just kind of a universal experience, but you have when you have clients in who kind of have an image in their mind of they know what they want, but they don't really know what they want, so they're relying on you as a designer, and then like you as a designer bring in all your academic skills and all your knowledge of color and composition and harmony and all that stuff, and you bring it together and you make this beautiful thing, and then they're coming at it from this commercial perspective, as in, is this gonna pop, is this gonna, does this represent my brand the way I want it? So they'll often give you directions that how do I put this politely, decrease the artistic merit of what you're making.
Yeah.
So and it happens a lot, and so you'll go through revision after revision after revision, so you had this beautiful piece here, and at the end it becomes this thing down here. It's like I don't want my name associated with it. So it's like, the joke is, the clients, the feedback is, can you make it uglier? No. Can you make it uglier? No, 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 no. Uglier. That's it right there. So that's kind of the, I guess, and it happens a lot, but not all the time. Like sometimes, clients actually have uh like good feedback. You're like, oh, that was a good suggestion. Yeah, I can add that. And there is that kind of collaboration, but a lot of times, because just the perspective, they're coming from this corporate kind of
Mm.
perspective, but they have this one chance to be creative, and so they're going to run with it, and that causes problems sometimes.
How
But
do you,
I
as
mean,
a
I
creative
have,
person who takes a lot of ownership over your designs, right? How do you handle that when someone's asking you to make something that it's tougher for you to get behind? Like, what do you do? How do you do that?
well, that's an excellent question. So, and what's great about the kind of career that I've carved for myself is I have kind of these two worlds where I do this commercial stuff, but I also do my personal stuff. So the commercial stuff I don't take so personally. I'm like, that I'm just making a paycheck. I mean, sometimes I do have an opportunity to really make something really nice and really beautiful, and I'm proud of it. And a lot of times it's like, this is just an hour of my time, and I'm gonna collect a paycheck no matter what, if I made something ugly or if I made something beautiful. So it doesn't really matter. And my signature is not really going on it. It's going to be this kind of anonymous thing that sits there. So I don't have to put my name to it. Um, and there is what I really get from my commercial work is the ability to go through lots of compositions and lots of designs really quickly. And that really informs my other work. I've noticed that before I started as an in-house commercial artist, I mean, my draftsman skills were okay, but my composition was really bad, and my color was really bad, and like all these other things. And then I had the opportunity. It's the saying, behind every good drawing is 10,000 bad drawings. Same kind of thing. I have the opportunity to get paid to do these maybe not so good compositions or maybe not so great pieces of artwork, but I learn from them and they inform my personal work. So that's something, as I take it as kind of a learning experience, but I also don't take it that personally, because it's not like I'm hanging this up somewhere with my name attached to it. So I don't have to kind of endure that. And also the other thing too is, you as a commercial artist or illustrator designer, there's a degree of humility you have to take, in that a person with no um, visual experience, as an academic visual experience, or they aren't a trained artist, or they don't have a trained eye, their perspective in viewing something is perfectly valid. Like they're seeing something, and if it doesn't speak to them, or if it doesn't appeal to them in a certain way, like that's 100% valid. It means I haven't done my job. So even if it is kitschy or, embarrassing or just over the top or whatever, I mean, if it speaks to someone on a fun level or something like that, you know, that's that's valid. But to tell a specific story about that, so the guy who runs the company I work for, his father actually started concessions at the Washington State Fair for many, many years. So he's been in this world for a long time where, we sell to tourist locations like Six Flags and the national parks and all that stuff. So I mean, he really knows the market. He knows how to make, when I got there, like I was much more artsy with things. And he says, we need to train you to make things schlockier. So, and then, and we'll have meetings and then I'll, present our artwork and things. And then he's very, very direct. So I'll work hours on something. I'll bring it in and be like, I hate it. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do with that? And then we kind of have a discussion of how to modify and things like that. But I mean, I'm used to really, really direct feedback, and you can't take it personally because it's like I'm part of this business. I'm part of kind of this pipeline of work, and I have a job to do, and I'm doing it. And it's not my personal work that I'm hanging up on a wall that I want to, be there for posterity. And it's like, this is my work. It's just, it helps my skill set, helps me be a better artist, but it provides a paycheck. So I guess that's kind of how I handle all of that.
Yeah.
But of course, with my personal work, it's a lot different. If you say I hate it to my personal work, it'd be like, okay, well, thank you for your opinion.
Yeah.
But it's because it's kind of removed and it's a bit different. Then it's criticism is handled a lot better, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm so used to it now. Like I've been working in that industry since 2013, so it's been a long time for me. So it's just kind of natural. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And I would bet that even with your personal work that, you hold a lot closer, that you've grown much more capable of hearing criticism in regards to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That stuff never lives in a vacuum like that, right?
No.
Categorically.
Yeah.
I think you've already kind of expressed that pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's funny because I mean, you mentioned how we have artists have this kind of self-deprecating nature and like, oh yeah, I mean, I worked on this piece but it's still not good enough, and other people are like, wow, it's great. Like, no, I didn't really do what I wanted to do with it. So we have this thing where we're always trying to perfect in our mind or make our piece look how we want it to look in our heads, which I mean, for me, took a long time to get to that point. But understanding points of view of other people and criticisms to people who aren't trained in the arts is valid, and understand where they're coming from and how they see things, and maybe not, if they have a suggestion or if they have a criticism, consider it and understand where it's coming from, and then maybe it'll help you to make something better, and maybe it won't. But just the act of humility of being like, oh, I mean, that's an interesting perspective, and that's a point of view that I actually listen to. And I think that's essential for, I mean, all artists, not just students. I mean, especially with students, when you have, you have instructors and you have teachers who are trying to translate or trying to transmit, these skill sets, and students. I mean, because that's another thing I do or have done. I mentioned the studio earlier. We have a studio, and I teach basic drawing classes and things like that. And I've noticed that younger kids, like they're used to having instruction. They go to school, they have teachers. And then when you teach older people, adults, they're not so used to having an instructor or a teacher. So the I guess the humility is a little different there. So being teachable is really important as an artist, even with years of experience and the abilities that I have. Like, understanding that I still have a lot to learn is important. So you're always growing and developing as an artist.
Best case scenario for your life as an artist, what is it?
well, I kind of had it. I have because 3 blocks. I'm in my backyard right now in my little garden, but 3 blocks from here, I have a little studio, and it's 200 square feet, so it's not huge. But I mean, I have that space to myself, and I can take some time. I mean, I guess my ideal scenario is that I would have, instead of working so much on my commercial work, that I could work on my independent pieces, and I could have that dedicated time to really work on my craft and not work on promotion so much. I mean, that's when you're an independent artist, self promotion via website, via Instagram, social media, all that. I mean, that takes up a huge amount of time. Artists these days have to be really tech savvy, commercial savvy, understand industry, understand all that stuff. And I mean, it's an important skill set, and being a business person is really important. But I just kind of wish that I had a ridiculously wealthy, Italian patron who's just like, make beautiful things and I'll pay you. Like, okay, here I go.
Do
So I
they
guess
have
that's
to
my
be
scenario.
Italian? Like Italian is
No,
the best case
no, they don't have to be Italian. But if
scenario?
if I'm gonna hang out in some like beautiful villa in northern Italy somewhere, that's
You're
I'd be in heaven.
you're of course referring to someone from the Medici family, right?
Oh yes, a Medici, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, I guess that would be my ideal scenario. A very, very wealthy patron who's just like, here's all this money, go make things, go make beautiful things, and I don't have to worry about it. So
That sounds good. Yeah,
yeah.
I can get behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people could.
All right. Well, Scott Hammond, folks, thank you so much, Scott, for spending your time with us and telling us a little bit about your art. I'm going to,
Yep.
I'll edit in your website address on here for
Okay.
students who can go visit that and see what you make.
Awesome.
And we'll talk later.
Yeah, it sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Scott.